Within 40 minutes, Wexner's name was added back.
Within 40 minutes of me catching you red-handed.
There is no question that Attorney General Pam Bondi was given some very specific marching orders when she testified on Capitol Hill today. I mean, orders like, don't answer many questions or any questions. Pass the buck to the FBI, which I would note she oversees. That's under the Department of Justice. And when all else fails, launch personal attacks against the senator questioning you. That seemed to be the strategy. But whatever strategery was given to her by the Trump team, and they gave her some, didn't seem to really land well. I mean, here was one exchange between Attorney General Bondi and Democratic Senator Sheldon Whitehouse about Trump's relationship with child sex predator Jeffrey Epstein.
There's been public reporting that Jeffrey Epstein showed people photos of President Trump with half-naked young women. Do you know if the FBI found those photographs?
Hey guys, Adam is here. You need to sit down for this one because what just happened in Washington this week is one of the most unhinged things I've ever seen in American politics.
It was a hearing that was combative right from the very start.
You can let her filibuster all day long, but not on our watch. Not on our time. No way. And I told you about that, Attorney General, before you started.
You don't tell me.
Yeah, I did tell you because we saw what you did in the Senate.
A hearing with Attorney General Pam Bondi that got so heated, one Democratic member left the hearing room.
Didn't ask Merrick Garland anything about Epstein, not once. When he was
weak sauce.
And also, I want the record to reflect that, you know, with this anti-Semitic culture right now, she voted against a resolution condemning.
Oh, he is Jewish. I just want to be clear.
So you want to go there, Attorney General? Are you serious? Talking about anti-Semitism to a woman who lost her grandfather in the Holocaust?
Bondi challenged by Republican Tom Massey over the Department of Justice redactions in the file, including Leslie Wexner, founder of Victoria's Secret.
Within 40 minutes, Wexner's name was added back.
Within 40 minutes of me catching you red-handed.
Attorney General Pam Bondi, Trump's personally chosen loyalist, the woman running the most powerful law enforcement agency on the planet, just sat in front of the House Judiciary Committee for over 5 hours and absolutely melted down on live television. She called Democratic lawmakers washed up and unprofessional.
Will you turn to them now and apologize for what your Department of Justice has put them through?
I'm not going to get in the gutter for her theatrics.
She called a Republican congressman, one of her own people, a failed politician with Trump derangement syndrome. She refused to apologize to Jeffrey Epstein's survivors who were literally sitting right behind her in the hearing room. And here's the wildest part.
Show me your hands if you were satisfied with what you heard from the Attorney General today. Nobody. There wasn't even an adult in the room that could apologize for the damage done to children and girls.
Saying they just want accountability.
We've heard several times our government say, we're moving on from this, and that just enrages me.
She showed up with a binder containing a printed copy of a Democratic lawmaker's search history from the DOJ's Epstein Files database. She brought receipts on what members of Congress were searching for when they came to review documents at the Department of Justice. Photographers caught it on camera. The page said, Jahana Hayes search history, right at the top. The DOJ was tracking what members of Congress looked at and handed that information to the Attorney General so she could prepare to deflect their questions. Let that sink in. The nation's top law enforcement officer walked into a congressional oversight hearing armed with surveillance data on the very lawmakers supposed to be overseeing her. Jamie Raskin called it Orwellian. Other Democrats called it a burn book. Even Speaker Mike Johnson, a Republican, said it would be inappropriate if it happened. This is not normal. Here's the real kicker. While Bondi was melting down in front of Congress, a federal judge in Manhattan was grilling Trump's lawyers for 3 hours over his latest attempt to make his hush money conviction disappear. And a Republican-appointed judge in Minnesota was documenting how ICE violated nearly 100 court orders in a single month. The courts, Congress, and the public are all pushing back at the same time, and the cracks in the wall around Trump are getting bigger by the day. Let me walk you through what actually happened at that hearing because the details are even worse than the headlines make it sound. The hearing was technically about oversight of the Department of Justice, just a standard check-in where lawmakers ask the AG questions. But this was anything but standard. Democrats came loaded for bear. They had Epstein survivors in the room wearing all white. They had documents showing redactions they believed were hiding the names of powerful men connected to Epstein. And they had questions about why the DOJ seemed to be weaponizing its power to go after Trump's political enemies while simultaneously covering up information about Epstein's network. The Epstein situation lit the fuse. Congress passed a law requiring the DOJ to release all government files related to Jeffrey Epstein. The DOJ released over 3 million pages of documents, but with heavy redactions. Critics from both parties accused Bondi's DOJ of over-redacting the names of powerful people connected to Epstein while at the same time accidentally failing to redact the personal information of his victims. That's right, the DOJ managed to protect the powerful and expose the vulnerable at the same time. Survivors' names and even nude images of victims ended up published on the DOJ website. Republican Thomas Massie, who co-wrote the bill forcing the release, confronted Bondi directly and said the DOJ's handling was a massive failure. He pointed out that the name of billionaire Leslie Wexner had been redacted from an FBI document listing potential co-conspirators. When Massie caught it live in the hearing, the DOJ magically unredacted it within 40 minutes. Massie looked at Bondi and said, "40 minutes of me catching you red-handed." Bondi's response? She called Massie a failed politician with Trump derangement syndrome. She said that to a Republican, a member of her own party, the guy who wrote the bill that made the Epstein release happen. Then came the moment with Representative Jahana Hayes that blew the whole thing wide open. Hayes asked Bondi to turn around and face the Epstein survivors sitting behind her and apologize for what the DOJ had put them through. Bondi refused. She said she wasn't going to get in the gutter for Hayes' theatrics. Hayes accused the DOJ of executing a massive cover-up, and then after the hearing, the photos came out. Photographers had captured Bondi flipping through her binder, and one page clearly read, "Jahana Hayes Search History." The DOJ had been tracking what lawmakers were searching for when they visited the department to review unredacted Epstein files, and Bondi brought that tracking data to the hearing. Hayes was furious. She said Bondi showed up with a burn book and accused the DOJ of spying on members of Congress. Raskin called it an outrageous abuse of power and said he's asking the DOJ Inspector General to investigate. Even other Democrats who went to review the files said the setup was suspicious. Members had to use individual logins on DOJ computers in a tiny room with no phones allowed, meaning every search they made was logged under their name. The DOJ's defense? They said they track searches to protect against the release of victim information, but nobody believes that's why Bondi had a printout of a congresswoman's search history in her binder at a public hearing. That's opposition research dressed up as data security. Through all of this, Bondi spent the hearing praising Trump like she was introducing him at a rally. She called him the greatest president in American history. She attacked Democrats who participated in Trump's impeachment hearings. When Representative Ted Lieu showed footage of Trump and Epstein together at a party and suggested Bondi had lied under oath about Trump's connections to Epstein, Bondi fired back, "Don't you ever accuse me of a crime." The whole thing was a circus. 5 hours of shouting matches and stonewalling that left Bondi looking the worst. Even Fox News described her performance as atrocious. The Republican chairman, Jim Jordan, mostly sat there letting his members praise Bondi while Democrats tore into her, creating this split-screen reality where one side sees a brave attorney general fighting the deep state and the other side sees a loyal soldier protecting a president at the expense of trafficking survivors. Now connect this to Trump's broader legal situation because this is where the real prison risk conversation happens. The same week Bondi was imploding on Capitol Hill, Judge Alvin Hellerstein in Manhattan spent nearly 3 hours grilling Trump's legal team over their attempt to move his hush money conviction into federal court. This is Trump's third try at getting this case moved, and the judge told his lawyers point blank that they were seeking 2 bites at the apple and that their earlier strategic decisions had been fatal to their argument. Trump was convicted on 34 felony counts in 2024. His lawyers originally went to the state trial judge to challenge the conviction on immunity grounds, waited 58 days past the deadline for moving the case to federal court, and now want another shot. The judge appeared deeply skeptical and said he'd rule soon. Legal analysts widely expect him to reject the bid again, which keeps the conviction alive and moving through state appellate courts. In Minnesota, the judiciary's frustration with the Trump administration reached levels that are almost hard to believe. Chief Judge Patrick Schiltz, a George W. Bush appointee, documented that ICE had violated 96 court orders in 74 cases just in January. He wrote that ICE has likely violated more court orders in January 2026 than some federal agencies have violated in their entire existence. He ordered the acting director of ICE to appear in court personally to explain why he shouldn't be held in contempt. An ICE attorney detailed to Minnesota was so overwhelmed that she told a judge to hold her in contempt so she could get a full night's sleep, then got removed from her assignment for saying it. 2 U.S. citizens were killed by federal agents in Minnesota during the immigration crackdown. Schools emptied. Businesses shut down. Protests erupted daily. Courts are now overflowing with habeas petitions from people who say they were detained illegally. When you step back and look at the full picture, the pattern is unmistakable. And it's not the pattern that the fake YouTube videos are selling you. Trump is not about to be frog-marched to prison because Pam Bondi crumbled in front of some fictional Supreme Court hearing that never happened. That's fantasy. That's clickbait. What is actually happening is more complicated, slower, and in many ways more dangerous for Trump because it's institutional, it's systemic, it's judges and lawmakers and prosecutors and even members of his own party chipping away at the foundation of his power, one hearing, one court order at a time. Look at what happened in a single week. His attorney general got destroyed in a 5-hour congressional hearing where she couldn't give straight answers about Epstein. Got caught tracking lawmakers' search histories, called members of both parties names on live television, and generally made the Department of Justice look like a political operation rather than a law enforcement agency. His lawyers got grilled for 3 hours by a federal judge who basically told them their legal strategy in the hush money case was dead on arrival. A Republican-appointed judge documented nearly 100 court order violations by his own immigration agencies. A federal prosecutor on his own team was so broken by the chaos that she begged to be held in contempt. That is a terrible week by any measure. That is the kind of week that moves poll numbers and shifts midterm narratives. Here's what the fake YouTube content misses entirely. The real danger for Trump isn't some dramatic courtroom scene where a judge bangs a gavel and says guilty, go to prison. The real danger is the slow, grinding accumulation of institutional resistance that makes it harder for him to govern, harder for his party to hold power, and harder for his allies to protect him from accountability. Every time Bondi stonewalls a hearing and gets caught with surveillance data on lawmakers, it fuels the narrative that the Justice Department has been weaponized. Every time a judge says Trump's legal strategy is fatal, it keeps his criminal conviction alive and in the news. Every time ICE ignores a court order, it gives Democrats another data point for the argument that this administration doesn't respect the rule of law. None of those things individually put Trump in prison, but collectively they create the conditions for something that actually could change everything. A midterm wipeout that hands Democrats the power to launch real investigations, real subpoenas, and potentially real impeachment proceedings. The left-wing clickbait machine wants you to believe Trump is going to prison next Tuesday. That's not happening. The right-wing media machine wants you to believe everything is fine. That's also not happening. What is happening is messier and more uncertain than either side wants to admit. Trump has a criminal conviction that won't go away. His AG just had the worst public performance of her career. His approval rating is in the high 30s. His party's internal polling shows them losing the House and potentially the Senate. Judges across the country, including ones appointed by Republican presidents, are running out of patience with his administration's refusal to follow the law. The Epstein situation is becoming its own slow-burning crisis that Bondi cannot put out. The survivors aren't going away. The bipartisan anger over the redactions isn't going away. And the revelation that the DOJ was tracking what lawmakers were searching in the Epstein files and handing that data to the Attorney General before a congressional hearing, that's a scandal that is going to have legs. Raskin is demanding an Inspector General investigation. Hayes is organizing letters. Even Mike Johnson acknowledged it would be inappropriate. When the Speaker of the House, a Republican, says what you did might be wrong, you've got a problem. Stop falling for the fake prison alerts. Stop clicking on the videos that promise Trump is getting locked up tomorrow because some made-up judge made some made-up ruling. That stuff is designed to take your money and your attention, not to inform you. The real story is that Trump's administration is under siege from the courts, from Congress, from his own party, and from the reality of governing with a sinking approval rating and a midterm election that looks worse every single week. The real accountability, if it comes, won't arrive with a dramatic YouTube thumbnail. It'll arrive through votes in November, through court rulings that take months, through investigations that grind forward one hearing at a time. And right now, every single one of those gears is turning against him. Not in some fantasy, in reality.